Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radha. Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladeva, Jai Subhadra, Jai Lakshmi Narasimha, Lakshmi Narasimha, Lakshmi Narasimha, Jai Lakshmi Narasimha. Jai Gauranika, 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 Jai Jai Gauranika, Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai 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 Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manodhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamadam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. 13th chapter. We are in 8th verse. Let us have some recap. Little technical subject, so we should have a recap. Arjuna's question is, please describe to me about nature, that is Prakriti, about Purusha, about the field. I want to know about the knower of the field. And also I want to know about what is knowledge and what is the object of knowledge. So then going further, Krishna says, in the second verse, Krishna says, one who knows the distinction between the body and the soul, that person is the knower of the field. And the body is compared to the field. Then third verse, Krishna says, yes, I am also the knower. I am also the knower of this field. The 10 aspects have been spoken in the fourth verse. What is Kshetra? What is Ettat Yacha? That is, what are the components of this body? Then Krishna speaks about what are the sense objects, Yadruk. What are the sense objects which has taken shelter and which actually refines our consciousness or changes our consciousness also. What takes shelter, what is responsible? Because so responsible, the sense objects are very much responsible for having these transformations. Yad vikari, this transformation. And then in these transformations, we have various types of transformations, various types of desires, and all these things happen. Desire, hatred, happiness, distress. This is known as yad vikari. And then we should know the purpose also, purpose of the appearance of the body, yataha, purpose. Again, this purpose is dependent on our previous life impressions, how much elevated consciousness one is having, whether one wants to be, one wants liberation or one wants to enjoy. This is known as yataha, the purpose is understood. And then the type of sarupa a person gets. Whatever consciousness he has, the type of sarupa he gets. And then cha and sa and cha. Sa is the jiva, cha is the Lord. Sa means jiva and cha means and actually, and the Lord. And then how are their sarupas? Always eternal. The soul has always an eternal sarupa, that is yat. Then comes yat prabhava, yat prabhava. That means it is always having divine sarupa. But what are the different things? Yaha refers to sarupa, and that yat prabhava refers to the different energies, their energies. So this is knowledge. This is knowledge. Jnanam. This is jnanam. Process of attaining the knowledge that has been given in 8th to 12th verse. What is the process of attaining this knowledge? 6 and 7 is describing 4th verse more elaborately. I hope all of you have understood this. If you have not understood, please ask again. Again, we will do it. Then only we can go further. If you say, then afterwards you say, what was that yad vikari? What was that yadrak? So understand it very nicely. If you have understood nicely, then we can go further, because that is a process of knowing this. Knowing what? Tat kshetram yaccha yadruk cha yadvikari yatash chayat sa cha yah yad prabhavas cha tat samasena me shrunu. 10 are there. Kshetram, body. Again, I'm repeating. Kshetram, body. Yach, the components. Okay? Yadruk, the sense objects. Yadvikari, transformation. Yataha, the purpose. Yataha. Yat, what type of swarupa person gets. Cha, sa, jiva. Cha, that is Lord. Yaha, their swarupa. Now, their eternal swarupa. Yat prabhava, the energies. 10 aspects are in. Now, what is the process of understanding this knowledge? There should be some process. What are the qualifications a person should have to get this knowledge? 8th to 12th verse. If possible, memorize these verses. 8 to 12. 5 verses are there. Most important verses. When we are doing the process of surrenderance, in the 2nd chapter, 7th verse, we did Karpanya dosho pahata svabhava pruchhami tvam dharma sammudha cheta yashreyasyatischitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham shadi mam tvam prapanna. We did that process of surrenderance. While doing that, we also compared what we compared in the process of surrenderance. First is taking shelter of Guru, then offering services, then inquiry. There are three processes of surrenderance, or 3 processes comes in this surrenderance. That is, first is taking shelter of Guru. Adav Guru Padashraya. Adav Guru Padashraya. First take shelter of Guru. Then Sadharma Pruchha, inquire. Then Sevaya. Sevaya, do service. So when we studied second chapter, 7th verse, that has it. Inquiry was done. Prapannam tells how to surrender to Guru. Prapannam. Shishyasteham, that means following the footsteps of the Guru. Enquiring. What was the inquiry? Yashre yasyat nishchitam bruhitan me. That was the inquiry. If we see 4th chapter, 34th verse also, that verse is also for process of surrenders. Tadvidhi pradipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. If you see Tadvidhi pranipatena, again pranipatena, Adav Guru Padashraya, pranipatena, then Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena, that means Sadharma Pruchha pariprashnena. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Sevaya for sevaya. The 3 things should be there. Process of surrenderance means 3 things should be there. Take the shelter of Guru, inquire into him, serve him. Actually serve him and then get qualification to inquire from him. That is the process of surrenders. These verses are for process of surrenders. Sarvadharman Parityajya, this verse is not for process of surrender. Process means the 3 things should be there in that verse. What the 3 things should be there? Prapatti should be there. Prapannam, Prapatti should be there. Surrenderance should be there. Then what should be there? Inquiry, that word should be there. And Sevaya word should be there. Now 8 to 12 is also process of surrenderance. Till this process of surrenderance, impossible to attain knowledge. It is not so easy to attain knowledge. Jnanam, Jnayam, object of knowledge. Now Jnanam has been spoken. How to attain the Jnanam has been spoken in 4th and 6th and 7th. If you see elaborately, it has been spoken. Krishna is going to speak elaborately. 6th and 7th, Krishna has spoken elaborately. How to attain this knowledge? 8 to 12 is the answer. Amanitvam matam hitvam ahimsa shantirarjavam Acharyupasanam shaucham stairyam atma vinigraha Indriyartheshu vairagyam manahankara evacha Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam Asakti nana vishwangaha putradhara grahadishu Nityam cha samachittatvam ishtanishtopapatishu Maichananya yogena bhaktir abhyabhicharini Vivikta desha sevitvam aratir jana samsadi samsadi aratir jana samsadi Adhyatma jnana nityatvam tattva jnanartha darshanam etaj jnanamiti praktam Ajnanam yad anyato yad ato netha yad ato natha yadato netha yadato nyatha. Okay, again I'll read this verse. Amanitvam madambhitvam ahimsa shantirarjavam acharyopasanam shaucham stairyam atma vinigraha indriyartheshu vairagyam Anahankara evacha janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam asaktir anabhishwangaha putradhara grahadishu nityam cha samachittatvam ishtanishtopapatishu maichananya yogena bhaktir avyabhicharini vivikta desha sevitvam aratir jana samsadi Adhyatma jnana nityatvam tattva jnanartha darshanam ekaj jnanamiti proktam ajnanam yadato nyatha. We'll read such a big verse. Okay, we will split it. First verse. Ansurupi Prabhu, please read first verse. If these qualifications comes in us, we can attain that knowledge of 6th and 7th verse. Yes.
अमानित्वमदान्वित्वमहिंसा शान्तिराजर्वमम् आचार्योपासनं शौचं धैर्यमात्मा विनिग्रह.
Vaishnava Prabhu, all of you please keep your videos on if possible. Vaishnava Prabhu.
इंद्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यमनहङ्कार एव च
Indriyartheshu vairagyam anahankara eva cha.
इंद्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम अनहंकार एव च जन्म मृत्यु जरा व्याधि दुःख
Janma.
जन्म मृत्यु जरा व्याधि दुःख
Janma.
जन्म मृत्यु जरा व्याधि दुःख दोष अनुदर्शनम.
Very good. Shumor.
असक्तिर् अनभिष्वङ्गः पुत्रदारगृहादिषु नित्यं च समचित्वत्वम् इष्टनिष्ठोपपत्तिषु.
Ishtanishtopapatishu. Ishtanishtopapatishu. Don't break it. Say Ishtanishtopapatishu.
इष्टानिष्टोपपत्तिषु.
Okay. Kamalakshi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Maya chananya yogena bhaktir avyapabhicharin vikta desha sevitvam aratir jana samsati.
Arati.
Sorry. Aratir jana samsati.
Okay. Kalyani Mohini Mataji.
अध्यात्म ज्ञान नित्यत्वं तत्व ज्ञानार्थ दर्शनम ऐत ज्ञान निमित्त प्रोक्तम
ज्ञानम इति प्रोक्तम
एत ज्ञानमिति प्रोक्तम
अज्ञानम यदतोन्यथा
अज्ञानम यदतोन्यथा.
Okay. Narayana is there. Narayana will read all 5. I know you're sleeping there.
Amanitvam dam amanitvam madam bhitvam ahimsa shantirajrajavam acharyopasanam shaucham स्थैर्यमात्मा विनिग्रह इंद्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम अनहंकार एव च जन्म मृत्यु जरा व्याधि दुःख दोषानुदर्शनम् असक्तिरनभिष्वङ्ग पुत्रदार गृहादिषु नित्यं च समचित्तत्वम् इष्टानिष्टोपपत्तिषु मयि चानन्ययोगेन भक्तिरव्यभिचारिणी विविक्तदेश सेवित्वम् अरतिर्जन संसदि अध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वं तत्त्वज्ञानार्थ दर्शनम्
Jnanat.
तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम् एतज्ज्ञानम् इति प्रोक्तम् अज्ञानं यदतोऽन्यथा.
Yes, Krishna says this is jnanam. What is jnanam? Let us see. What is the process of attaining jnanam? First thing, amanitvam. The qualification should be free from pride. Amanitvam. Humility, you can say. Amanitvam. One should be very humble. Then, adambhitvam. Pridelessness. Ahimsa. Non-violence. Shantir. Tolerance. Then comes arjavam. Simple. Simplicity. Acharyopasanam. Acharyopasanam. That means one should approach a spiritual master. Just now we saw process of surrenderance. First thing is what? Take shelter of Guru. Acharyopasanam is the word in these 5 verses. Acharyopasanam. Mark it. Acharyopasanam. Like in the 2nd chapter, 7th verse, you had Prapannam. In 4th chapter, 34th verse, what we had? Tadvidhi pranipatena. Like this in 8th chapter, 12th verse, what you are having? Acharyopasanam. You write the subject, approaching the spiritual master, and write the verses 2.7, 4.34, 13.8 to 12. Write those words. What are those words which comes? Prapannam, pranipatena, acharyopasanam. Next. Shaucham. Shaucham means what? Clean. Cleanliness. Stairyam. Steadfastness. Atma vinigraha. That means self-control. Indriyartheshu. Is self-controlled in the matters of senses. Vairagyam. He is renounced. Anahankaraha. No false ego. Evacha janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanu darshanam. Why he has approached the Guru? Because Guru knows, he has seen this truth. Like we have tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadakshati te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. He is a tattvadarshi. Guru is a tattvadarshi. What is a tattvadarshinaha? He knows janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi, dukkha, dosha. This is all the nature of this material world. Then what else qualification one should have? Asaktir. He should not have any attachment. Anabhishwangaha. Without any false association. Or without any association. Putra, son, dara, wife, grahadishu, home, nityam. So he should not have any association or any attachment to son, wife, home. You say, what to do? Should we run away from the family? But have that attachment to Krishna and attach everyone in Krishna's service. That is why it's very difficult for a grahastha to understand this, because you're surrounded by your family. So then what you should do? Attach everyone in Krishna's service. In this way, attach. Then you will say, Vedavyasa, why did he cry Putreti when Sukadeva Goswami ran? Yes, you can have attachment to a devotee son, devotee child, devotee husband. Now you cannot run away from devotee husband. You have to take his help. You cannot run away from a devotee wife. You have to take help of devotee wife, devotee son, devotee daughter-in-law, devotee son-in-law, whatever, the whole family, devotee granddaughter, devotee grandson. Associate with them. Association should be there with the devotees. That is why make everyone devotees. Best is make everyone devotees. Now, then nityam samachittatvam, constantly. Nityam, always do perform devotional service. How? Samachittatvam, with equilibrium. Equilibrium means you should be equal in every circumstances. Ishta, anishta. Something desirable may come, something desirable may come. Upapattishu, have obtained. So having obtained something desirable or something undesirable, be equipoised. Then Maicha Ananya Yogena. How to perform service Ananya Yogena. So how should the service be there? Like three things are there, na? Sevaya. First is approaching the spiritual master. Second is Sevaya. So how should be the mood of Sevaya? Unalloyed devotional service. Ananya Yogena. So unalloyed devotional service means causeless. There should not be any motives. Unalloyed devotional service. That is known as pure bhakti. Unalloyed devotional service. Ananya Yogena Bhakti. Avyabhicharini, without any break. Ahataki apratihata, without any break. Apratihata means without any break. Avyabhicharini means without any break. Then vivikta desha, be in a solitary place. Now, are you in a solitary place? You are surrounded by your devotee husband, devotee wife, devotee children. Here, solitary refers to don't mingle with those people who have material mind. Avoid them. As much as possible, avoid the association of material-minded people. Simple. Then Vivikta Desha. Sevitvam. Always have that aspiration to serve how Ananya Yogena Avyabhicharani. Then Aratir, again without attachment. Jana Samsaddhi. Don't have any attachment to people in general. No. Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam. Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam. So, Adhyatma Jnana. This is knowledge, Krishna says. Adhyatma Jnana. Adhyatma Jnana, Adhyatma means pertaining to the soul. Knowledge pertaining to the soul. And what is Tattva Jnana? The knowledge pertaining to the Lord. Then, this philosophy, this is real knowledge. Adhyatma Jnana and Tattva Jnana. This is knowledge. Apart from that, anything. Last word you see, Ataha Anyatha. Apart from that, anything is Ajnanam, ignorance. That has been told. So, three things are involved. What are the three things? Approaching the spiritual master, then serving, inquiry. So, here what are the words? Acharya Pasanam. Service, how? Avyabhicharani, Ananya Yogena. That is a service without interruption, without any cause. And then inquiring. And what is the inquiry to be done? Adhyatma Jnana, Tattva Jnana. I want to know about myself and I want to know how to connect myself to Krishna. So, knowledge refers to how to connect everything in Krishna's service. First is what? We have seen this three knowledge, which is eternal knowledge. Tattvatraya. This is the real knowledge. What is the Tattvatraya? About Lord, about Jiva, and about matter. About Lord, that he is independent, Tattva, about supreme truth, Tattva Jnanam. Then about Adhyatma Jnanam, about oneself, servant to Krishna, about the matter also belongs to Krishna. Parabrahman, Jiva Brahman, Jada Brahman. So apart from this knowledge, there is no other knowledge. We may say that I am studying this, I am so and so, I have so much of degree with me, everything is fine. But anything else beyond these three things, Krishna says that is only Ajnanam. Now, studying matter is not a problem. Study about matter, but understand that matter belongs to Krishna. Without having connection of the dependent aspects to that independent person, without having that connection, without having that knowledge, everything else is only Ajnanam. The person may be highly qualified, but if he doesn't know the connection between Jiva Brahman, Jada Brahman to Parabrahman, what is the use? That has been spoken. Krishna clearly says, Yad Anyatha, whatever else is only Ajnanam. This has been spoken. Now, you see the purport is very long purport. So one you can read, like Kalyani Moini start reading.
Hare Krishna. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of the people, accepting the importance of self realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth. These I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. Purport. This process of knowledge is sometimes misunderstood by less intelligent men as being the interaction of the field of activity. But actually, this is the real process of knowledge. If one accepts this process, then the possibility of approaching the absolute truth exists. This is not the interaction of the 24 elements as described before. This is actually the means to get out of the entanglement of those elements. The embodied soul is entrapped by the body, which is a casing made of the 24 elements. And the process of knowledge, as described here, is the means to get out of it. Of all the descriptions of the process of knowledge, the most important point is described in the first line of the 11th verse. Mai Chananya Yogena Bhaktir Avyabhicharim. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. So, if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no particular value. But if one takes to devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, the other 19 items automatically develop within him. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagavati Akinchana Sarvair Gunais Tatra Samaste Suraha. All the good qualities of knowledge develop in one who has attained the stage of devotional service. The principle of accepting a spiritual master, as mentioned in the 8th verse, is essential. Even for one who takes to devotional service, it is most important. Transcendental life begins when one accepts a bona fide spiritual master. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, clearly states here that this process of knowledge is the actual path. Anything speculated beyond this is nonsense. As far as the knowledge outlined here, the items may be analyzed as follows. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others. But from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not this body, anything, honor or dishonor, pertaining to this body is useless. One should not be hankering after this material deception. People are very anxious to be famous for their religion, and consequently, sometimes it is found that without understanding the principles of religion, one enters into some group which is not actually following religious principles and then wants to advertise himself as a religious mentor. As for actual advancement in spiritual science, one should have a test to see how far he is progressing. He can judge by these items. Non-violence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body, but actually, non-violence means not to put others into distress. People in general are trapped by ignorance in the material concept of life, and they perpetually suffer material pains. So, unless one elevates people to spiritual knowledge, one is practicing violence. One should try his best to distribute real knowledge to the people so that they may become enlightened and leave this material entanglement. That is non-violence. Tolerance means that one should be practiced to bear insult and dishonor from others. If one is engaged in the advancement of spiritual knowledge, there will be so many insults and much dishonor from others. This is expected because material nature is so constituted. Even a boy like Prahlada, who was only 5 years old, was engaged in the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, was endangered when his father became antagonistic to his devotion. The father tried to kill him in so many ways, but Prahlada tolerated him. So there may be many impediments to making advancement in spiritual knowledge, but we should be tolerant and continue our progress with determination.
Okay,
Simplest.
1 minute. 1 minute. Parthavantu Prabhu, read from here.
Simplicity means that without diplomacy, one should be so straightforward that he can disclose the real truth even to an enemy. As for acceptance of the spiritual master, that is essential because without the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, one cannot progress in the spiritual science. One should approach the spiritual master with all humility and offer him all services so that he will be pleased to bestow his blessings upon the disciple. Because a bona fide spiritual master is a representative of Krishna, if he bestows any blessings upon his disciple, that will make the disciple immediately advanced without the disciples following the regulative principles. Or the regulative principles will be easier for one who has served the spiritual master without reservations. Cleanliness is essential for making advancement in spiritual life. There are two kinds of cleanliness, external and internal. External cleanliness means taking a bath. For internal cleanliness, one has to think of Krishna always and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This process cleans the accumulated dust of past karma from the mind. Steadiness means that one should be very determined to make progress in spiritual life. Without such determination, one cannot make tangible progress. And self-control means that one should not accept anything which is detrimental to the path of spiritual progress. One should become accustomed to this and reject anything which is against the path of spiritual progress. This is real renunciation. The senses are so strong that they are always anxious to have sense gratification. One should not cater to these demands, which are not necessary. The senses should only be gratified to keep the body fit so that one can discharge his duty in advancing in spiritual life. The most important and uncontrollable senses is the tongue. If one can control the tongue, then there is every possibility of controlling the other senses. The function of the tongue is to taste and to vibrate. Therefore, by systematic regulation, the tongue should always be engaged in tasting the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna and chanting Hare Krishna. As far as the eyes are concerned, they should not be allowed to see anything but the beautiful form of Krishna. That will control the eyes. Similarly, the ears should be engaged in hearing about Krishna and the nose in smelling the flowers offered to Krishna. This is the process of devotional service. And it is understood here that Bhagavad Gita is simply expounding the science of devotional service. Devotional service is the main and sole objective. Unintelligent commentators on the Bhagavad Gita try to divert the mind of the reader to other subjects, but there is no other subject in Bhagavad Gita than devotional service.
Okay, 1 minute. Not to see anything except Krishna's form. So what will you do? When you go to office and all. That is why Bhagavatam has an answer for this. Thavara jangama dekhi, na dekhe tara murti, sarvatra hoye nija ishta deva smriti. See everything as an opulence of Krishna. Connect everything to Krishna. So this is an answer. Thavara jangama dekhi. If you are seeing movable, immovable, see everything in connection with Krishna. Then that is a proper state. Non-violence. There are three types of violence. Violence by mouth, or you can say words, violence by mind, and physical violence. All these three should be avoided. Physical violence can be understood. At least verbal violence also can be understood. But violence in mind, that means hating someone, that should be avoided. Because as Paramatma, Krishna is seeing us. We should learn to forgive others, forget and forgive. Because that is the nature of a Vaishnava. Vaishnava's nature should be, let us forgive others. Remember our mistakes, forgive others' mistake. Okay. Gadadhar Pandit, Prabhuji, Gadadhar Pandit. Wow, what a name. Gadadhar Gaur Prabhu, please read.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dadat Naam to you. Simplicity. Hare Krishna.
False ego. From there it comes. False ego.
I'm audible.
Sex. Yeah, but you're from where you're reading.
Raining. Rain is happening outside.
False ego means you're not with the. Okay, Sudha Mataji, you read. Sudha. Or Vaishnav Gaur Prabhu wants to read, he can read. Vaishnav Gaur Prabhu,
Yes.
you read.
False ego means accepting this body as oneself. When one understands that he is not his body and his spirit soul, he comes to his real ego. Ego is there. False ego is condemned, but not real ego. In the Vedic literature, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 1.4.10, it is said, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, I am spirit. This I am, the sense of self, also exists in the liberated stage of self-realization. This sense of I am is ego. But when the sense of I am is applied to this body, false body, it is false ego. When the sense of self is applied to reality, that is real ego. There are some philosophers who say we should give up our ego, but we cannot give up our ego because ego means identity. We ought, of course, to give up the false identification with the body. One should try to understand the distress of accepting birth, death, old age, and disease. There are descriptions in various Vedic literature of birth. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the word of the unborn, the child stay in the womb of the mother, its sufferings, etc., are all very graphically described. It should be thoroughly understood that birth is distressful because we forget how much distress we have suffered within the womb of the mother. We do not make any solution to the repetition of birth and death. Similarly, at the time of death, there are all kinds of suffering, and they are also mentioned in the authoritative scriptures. These should be discussed. And as far as disease and old age are concerned, everyone gets practical experience. No one wants to be diseased and no one wants to become old. But there is no avoiding these. Unless we have a pessimistic view of this material life, considering the distresses of birth, death, old age, and disease, there is no impetus for our making advancement in spiritual life. As for detachment from children, wife, and home, it is not meant that one should have no feeling for these. They are natural objects of affection. But when they are not favorable to spiritual progress, then one should not be attached to them. The best process for making the home pleasant is Krishna consciousness. If one is in full Krishna consciousness, he can make his home very happy. Because this process of Krishna consciousness is very easy. One need only chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Accept the remnants of foodstuff offered to Krishna, have some discussion on books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and engage oneself in deity worship. These four things will make one happy. One should train the members of his family in this way. The family members can sit down morning and evening and chant together Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. If one can mold his family life in this way to develop Krishna consciousness, following these four principles, then there is no need to change from family life to renounced life. But if it is not congenial, not favorable for spiritual advancements, then family life should be abandoned. One should sacrifice everything to realize or serve Krishna, just as Arjuna did. Arjuna did not want to kill his family members, but when he understood that these family members were impediment to his Krishna realization, he accepted the instruction of Krishna and fought and killed them. In all cases, one should be detached from the happiness and distress of family life, because in this world, one can never be fully happy or fully miserable. Happiness and distress are concomitant factors of material life. One should learn to tolerate as advised in Bhagavad Gita. One can never restrict the coming and going of happiness and distress. So one should be detached from the materialistic way of life and be automatically equipoised in both cases. Generally, when we get something desirable, we are very happy. And when we get something undesirable, we are distressed. But if we are actually in the spiritual position, these things will not agitate us. To reach that stage, we have to practice unbreakable devotional service. Devotional service to Krishna without deviation means engaging oneself in the 9 processes of devotional service, that is, chanting, hearing, worshipping, offering respect, etc., as described in the last verse of 9th chapter. That process should be followed. Naturally, when one is adapted to the spiritual way of life, he will not want to mix with materialistic men. That would go against his grain. One may test himself by seeing how far he is inclined to live in a solitary place without unwanted association. Naturally, a devotee has no taste for unnecessary voting or cinema going or enjoying some social function, because he understands that these are simply a waste of time. There are many research scholars and philosophers who study sex life or some other subjects. But according to Bhagavad Gita, such research work and philosophical speculation have no value. That is more or less nonsensical. According to Bhagavad Gita, one should make research by philosophical discretion into the nature of the soul. One should make research to understand the self. That is recommended here. As far as realization is concerned, it is clearly stated here that Bhakti Yoga is specially practical. As soon as there is a question of devotion, one must consider the relationship between the super soul and the individual soul. The individual soul and the super soul cannot be one, at least not in the Bhakti conception, the devotional conception of life. This service of the individual soul to the Supreme Soul is eternal, Nityam, as it is clearly stated. So Bhakti or devotional service is
Voice is not heard. Haribol. Others are able to hear. I am not able to hear. Ansruti Prabhu.
Is not heard.
Not heard. Okay, you read from here. Nityam. Or who will read?
Can I read, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji, read.
Gauda speaking here. I'm reading. Sorry, Mataji, earlier I couldn't keep the track.
Yeah, Nityam. Start.
So, bhakti or devotional service is eternal. One should be established in that philosophical concept. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11, this is explained. Vadanti tattva tattvam yajnanam advayam. Those who are actually knowers of the very truth know that the self is realized in 3 different phases, as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the last word in the realization of the absolute truth. Therefore, one should reach up to that platform of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus engage in the devotional service of God. That is the perfection of the knowledge. Beginning from practicing humility up to the point of realization of the Supreme Truth, the Absolute Personality of Godhead, this process is just like a staircase beginning from the ground floor and going up to the top. Now, on this staircase, there are so many people who have reached the first floor, the second floor, or the third floor, etc. But unless one reaches the top floor, which is the understanding of Krishna, is at a lower stage of Krishna knowledge. If anyone wants to complete with God and at the same time make advancement in spiritual knowledge, he will be frustrated. It is clearly stated that without humility, understanding is not truly possible. To think oneself God is most puffed up, although the living entity is living being, always being kicked by the stringent laws of material nature, he still thinks I am God because of ignorance. The beginning of knowledge, therefore, is amanitva, humility. One should be humble and know that he is subordinate to the Supreme Lord. Due to rebellion against the Supreme Lord, one becomes subordinate to material nature. One must know and be convinced of this truth. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So all these qualifications will make us attain the knowledge. These qualifications first gives us the shelter of the spiritual master, or as soon as a person takes the shelter of spiritual master, automatically once consciousness is purified and one gets this nature, and these natures are enough to make a person understand Adhyatma Jnanam and Tattva Jnanam. Beyond this, there is no truth, there is no knowledge. Because Krishna has spoken about knowledge. Now, in the next verse, Krishna speaks about object of knowledge. Let us see. Because Jnanam was there, Geyam was there. What is the object of knowledge? Object. Geyam yat tat pravakshami yajñātvā mritamashnuté anādimat param brahma nasat tannasat uchyate. Geyam yat tat pravakshami yajñātvā mritamashnuté anādimat param brahma nasat tannasat uchyate. This is Geyam. What is Geyam? Geyam yattat pravakshami. I'm going to tell you what is Geyam. What is that object to be known, knowable. Yad gyatva amritam ashnute. After knowing that you'll experience the nectar, amritam. And what is that Geyam? That is Brahma. What is that Brahman? Jiva Brahman. To know about the soul. How is the soul? Soul is anadi, beginless. Soul is subordinate to me, matparam, subordinate to me. It has no material cause, no material effect, no material identification. So what is that object to be known? That is soul. Object to be known is soul. And what is the nature of soul? It is subordinate to Krishna. And the nature of the soul has been more elaborately described. That it is sinless, it is birthless, it is deathless. That has been described. 8 qualities are there for soul. 8 qualities. Pure soul. Shruti says about this. You can note it down. Atma is sinless. Sinless. Atma has no age. It is not aging. It doesn't become old. Atma has no death. Atma is without lamentation. No lamentation. We saw in 2nd chapter also. Na jayate, na mriyate. So no death, no birth, no death. No hunger. Atma has no hunger. Atma has no thirst. And the pure soul's desire is truth. If the desire of the soul is truth. Every desire is truth, not false. And every desire is fulfilled. So the nature of the pure soul is to desire service of Krishna, that is eternal truth. And that is fulfilled by Krishna. This is the nature of the soul. 8 qualities are there. Sinless, birthless, deathless, no lamentation, no hunger, no thirst. Every desire is truth, every desire is fulfilled. When we say no aging, that it involves no birth also. No birth, no age. It doesn't become old. So this is the Geyam. This is the object of knowledge. To understand that Jiva Brahman. That Jiva Brahman has no material cause, no material effect. Sad, asad. Na sat, na asat. No, na sat refers to no material effect. That means it is not possessing this material body. It has nothing to do with this material body. Though material body is given to the soul, the nature of the pure soul is it is not having any material body. Though entangled in a material body, the self-realized soul knows that this is not mine. It is just given to perform as service. It is a dress. Will you identify with the dress? Oh, I am sari. Oh, I am pant and shirt. Oh, I am kurta pajama or kurta dhoti. No. It is just a facility. So in this way, na sat, it doesn't have any material name, material form, no individual name, no individual form. Na asat. That means it has nothing to do with this creation of the material world or destruction of the material world. Always existing. It is always existing. Soul is always existing. It has nothing to do with destruction or creation. It has nothing to do with attaining individual name or individual form or individual body. That is gayam. That is the object of knowledge. To understand oneself first. If that understanding is there, then I am servant to Krishna, mat param. I am subordinate to Krishna. Amrutam ashnute. He will experience amrutaha. He will experience, what will experience? These 8 things. That he is sinless. He doesn't age. There is no death. There is no hunger. There is no thirst. Material hunger, material thirst. Desires are fulfilled and desires are pure. Desires are pure, desires are fulfilled. There is no lamentation. If he understands this mat param, mad bhakti prabhavena sarva indriya vijaya purvika mat para, devotees understands mat param, that he is subordinate to Krishna. Every senses are utilized in Krishna's service. That is how he utilizes the facility in Krishna's service. So you can read this. Okay. Parthabandha Prabhu, read the verse. Read the verse.
Yes.
And Nikhil will read. Narayana will read the purport. Yeah.
Geyam yattat pravakshyami yajgyatva mritam ashnuntate ashnute anadi matparam brahma na sattanna saduchyate.
Narayana.
ध्येयं यत्तत् प्रवक्ष्यामि यज्ञात्वामृतमश्नुते अनादिमः परं ब्रह्म न सत्तन्ना सदच्युते.
Read the purport.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. The Lord has explained the field of activities and the knower of the field. He has also explained the process of knowing the knower of the field of activities. Now he begins to explain the knowable. First the soul and then the super soul. By knowledge of the knower, both the soul and the super soul, one can relish the nectar of life. As explained in the 2nd chapter, the living entity is eternal. This is also confirmed here. There is no specific date at which the Jiva was born, nor can anyone trace out the history of the Jivatma's manifestation from the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it is beginningless. The Vedic literature confirms this. Na jayate mriyate va vipaschit. Katha Upanishad 1.2.18. The knower of the body is never born and never dies, and he is full of knowledge. The Supreme Lord as a super soul is also stated in the Vedic literature, Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6.16, to be Pradhana Kshetrajna Patir Guneshah, the chief knower of the body and the master of three modes of material nature. In the Smriti, it is said, Dasa Bhuto Harer Eva Nanyashchaiva Kadachana. The living entity are eternally in the service of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed by Lord Chaitanya in his teachings. Therefore, the description of Brahman mentioned in this verse is in relation to the individual soul. And when the word Brahman is applied to the living entity, it is to be understood that he is Vijnana Brahma as opposed to Ananda Brahma. Ananda Brahma is Supreme Brahman personality of Godhead.
So we saw 5 koshas or 5 Brahma, Anna Brahma, Prana Brahma, then comes Jnana Brahma, Vijnana Brahma, and Ananda Brahma. This Vijnana Brahma refers to that soul which knows the distinct difference between the body and distinct difference between body, there is matter, soul, and the super soul or Krishna. Ananda Brahma is Supreme Personality of God. So we are talking about that Kshetrajna, and that Kshetrajna is the object to be known. That pure soul is the object to be known. That means to understand oneself, that 8 qualities are there in us, that the soul never ages, the soul never dies, the soul is always sinless, soul has no lamentation. Soul's every desire is truth with soul. We are talking about that soul which knows about its constitutional position. So this way, we'll stop here. I'm not asking any questions because we have Radhashtami meeting now. Any questions? Tomorrow. Not tomorrow also. We'll meet next week. Saturday, we have Ramanuja class in the evening, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And then I think next week is the exam, right? So we'll meet you in Ramanuja class. Hare Krishna.